First, let's start with this case. I'm an 18-year-old university fresher, living in a flat with Madison, 18, Simon, 20, Robert, 22, and Liam, 19, all fake names. Recently, I've had issues with Madison over cleanliness in the flat, and I'm questioning whether I handled things poorly. It started when Madison privately messaged me saying she didn't like how I spoke to her in our flat group chat. I'm naturally a jokey, sarcastic person, so I assumed I might have gone too far. I apologized immediately, but she didn't reply. Afterward, she didn't come back to the flat for weeks, and her location on Life 360 was turned off, which worried me. One day, Simon sent this message to the group chat. "Yo guys, whose cooker is that?" With a picture of a mini rice cooker. "Mine, lol. Inside is only just mold, haha, okay." Crazy stuff. Oh, what? When I saw the picture, I gagged. I remembered sitting with Madison in the kitchen last month while she cooked that rice. I took another picture of the rice cooker and sent it to the chat, adding that her avocados had also gone moldy, and I'd thrown them out. She didn't reply. The next day, I reminded her to throw the rice away because it was making the kitchen smell terrible. Her response? "Has anyone seen my pot?" I messaged her privately, twice, but got no reply. Finally, I caught her in the kitchen at 4 a.m. with her friends. I apologized again for anything I might have done to upset her and reminded her to throw the rice away. She said it was fine and promised to do it, but it stayed there for a few more days. At that point, I triple-bagged the rice cooker, left it by the bin, and shared a picture in the group chat. "Madison, please throw your rice away." I'm not even there, y'all, and I lost my pan. "Madison, I told you multiple times to please throw that away. It's a health hazard." "Bruh, just put it where the vacuum is." "No, it'll heat up and grow more mold." "Nah, there's a lid." "Meat'll attract bugs and rats." Eventually, Liam stepped in. "I threw that in the bin was nasty." When Madison left for Christmas break, she's visiting family in Thailand, she also didn't clean out her section of the shared fridge. I threw away food that was set to expire over the holiday. Leaking sauce packets, curdled milk, cookies, eggs, and vegetables pooling water. Her fridge section had been filthy for weeks, and my flatmates agreed something needed to be done. I sent a message to the group chat explaining what I'd done. Madison replied, "Kay." I sent her a video of the cleanup, and she complained that I was disrespecting her space. She claimed the sauces were still fine and expensive and accused me of nagging. She said I shouldn't touch her fridge area since I don't use it. I share a mini fridge with Robert. Now, I feel a little bad for throwing her things away, especially since she's going through personal problems and trying to heal. I also called her a bad word in the group chat after her K response, which probably didn't help. However, I didn't want the smell of rotting food in the flat over the holidays, especially since I'm staying here during the break. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. That sounds nasty AF. Don't feel bad for not wanting to live in moldy, rotten filth. She cannot do much about it beyond complain, so just use it as a lesson to get better roommates in future. Disgusting for even letting that food sit there for that long. This sounds like a bunch of children that are used to their mom cleaning up after them. Honestly, the first time you saw mold should have been when the rice was thrown away. Idiot? No idea, but this is embarrassing for everyone who lives in that flat. You're not in the wrong on the rice cooker and food. Her fault for leaving it like that. Maybe you didn't need to throw away sauces, especially if they're vinegar heavy and not likely to mold. But with her disregard for everything else, I'd have probably lost my patience and thrown it all away all at once too. Next up, my mother-in-law moved out to live with her boyfriend after we asked her to leave our home. A week ago, she brought us her boyfriend's dog, a beautiful golden retriever, and told us he needed to rehome it because his landlord didn't allow pets. The poor dog was clearly depressed the entire time, even though our own dog kept trying to cheer him up by bringing him toys and trying to play. Yesterday, mother-in-law's boyfriend showed up at our house to get something of hers out of the garage and saw the dog. They were both overjoyed to see each other, and the boyfriend was shocked, saying he thought the dog had gone missing. At that moment, I could have covered for mother-in-law, but instead I told him the truth, that mother-in-law had brought the dog to us and said her boyfriend wanted to rehome it. On top of that, I also revealed another incident that had happened, even though it wasn't necessary. One of the girls who lives with mother-in-law's boyfriend, a housemate in her early 20s who shares a room with another girl, had recently called my wife, saying that mother-in-law had stolen a piece of jewelry and a bottle of perfume from her room. The jewelry was a gift from her parents, and the girl didn't want to cause drama. She just wanted her belongings back. My wife was able to return the items to their rightful owner without the boyfriend finding out. When I told him about the theft on top of the dog situation, he was furious. He's now kicking mother-in-law out of the house. Now I'm wondering, am I the idiot for ratting mother-in-law out when I could have said a lot less and avoided making the situation worse? Let's start judging. You have a very strange way of characterizing all of this drama. Why would you think you were ratting your mother-in-law out when what you were doing was giving a straightforward answer to a man whose dog was missing? Your choice to throw in the jewelry theft after the dog thing is pretty weird. But can you honestly say that a sensible and attentive boyfriend would have been shocked by any of this? You are? You're not in the wrong. But if I were you, I would spend a lot more time worrying about my wife's apparent comfort with this sort of criminal behavior from her mother. You're not in the wrong. Boyfriend needs to know about mother-in-law and what she's doing. I'd be raging pissed if someone just gave my dog away and told me she'd run off. She's a massive idiot for doing that to him. She deserves to be kicked out and dropped like rock. You're not in the wrong. Overjoyed, you return the dog to his dad. This idea of snitching is bad comes from the takers in our society. You did good to tell him, so he dumps her too. Next up, I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I got married about a year ago. It was a wonderful experience and one of the happiest days of my life. My family was very involved in the wedding, and I appreciated their support, including my stepfather. At first, our relationship was a bit rocky, but over time, I grew to appreciate him. His daughter, however, is a completely different story. My stepsister, who is 26, and I just don't get along. It's not that we're too different, it's actually the opposite. We have very similar tastes, and this has caused conflict since childhood, from arguing over clothes to toys and more. She has been in a relationship with her fiancé for a while, though I've only met him a handful of times. During my wedding, she announced their relationship in what was essentially a 20-second PSA. It annoyed me initially, but I let it go. 4 months later, she announced her engagement and started planning her wedding, which is set to take place the day after Christmas. I've tried to help where I can, sharing contacts and advice since my own wedding was so recent. On Saturday, she called me in tears because her wedding dress wouldn't arrive in time due to alterations. For context, no one has seen this dress. She wanted to keep it a surprise. I tried to comfort her and suggested some local boutiques that might have ready-to-wear wedding dresses. Instead of being reassured, she cried harder, saying she didn't want a cheap dress. Before I could even finish offering to call my stepdad to brainstorm solutions, she suddenly asked, "Can I wear your dress?" I was stunned and didn't respond immediately. She went on to explain how it would make everything easier, how she's the same size as me, and how much she loved my dress when she saw me wear it. I blurted out a firm no and hung up the phone. Since then, I've been bombarded with calls and messages from her fiancé, and my stepdad. My stepdad even called me to plead, comparing this situation to when we used to borrow each other's things as kids. I explained to him how much my wedding dress means to me, emotionally and personally. It was my dream dress, and my husband, my mom, and I worked hard to save for it. I also told him that while I understand her situation, I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing something so special unless it was my choice. He got angry, called me selfish, and hung up. The messages keep coming, with my stepsister and her fiancé accusing me of being selfish and horrible. While I know she tends to be dramatic and over the top when things don't go her way, I can't shake a small feeling of guilt. It's just a dress, and it would make her happy. But at the same time, it's my dress, tied to one of the most significant days of my life. Should I let her wear it to avoid escalating the situation further? Update 1. I'm about to meet her to talk about it. I'll update when I'm back. Update 2. Well, that was something. I arrived at the coffee shop on time, but she showed up 30 minutes late. I explained gently why I didn't want her to wear my dress, emphasizing its emotional significance to me. She completely lost it, calling me a selfish cow and saying I'm the most horrible person ever. I tried to keep the conversation calm, but when she started crying and yelling, I decided I'd had enough. I handed her the wedding invitation she sent me and told her I wouldn't be attending her wedding but wished her the best. She completely flipped, yelling louder and even threatening to come to my house and take the dress herself. I left the coffee shop without saying another word and am now back home. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. I'm calling shenanigans on your stepsister's part. She probably had her eye on your dress since day one. Probably commissioned a similar dress, if she even did, hence the surprise, and planned to use your dress as a backup if hers didn't show up in time. You're not in the wrong. I'm calling shenanigans on your stepsister's part. She probably had her eye on your dress since day one. Probably commissioned a similar dress, if she even did, hence the surprise, and planned to use your dress as a backup if hers didn't show up in time. You're not in the wrong. Maybe if it were 10 years after your wedding, you might not have such strong sentimental attachment to the dress. But it's too soon. It's totally fine to not want to see someone else in it, especially someone you've had a rocky relationship with. It just feels icky, like, I don't know, lending her your bed for the wedding night. Be as calm as possible, helpful if you feel inclined to be, but stick to your guns. I'm sorry, but my wedding dress is too personal to share. It's not your fault your stepsister has mangled her planning, but it's not the end of the world for her either. Just ride this out as serenely as you can and say no. Next up, I'm a 30-something mother with a 13-year-old daughter, almost 14, who is in 8th grade. Recently, her school announced a graduation trip that she really wanted to attend. However, we've been dealing with some behavioral issues, so I told her she would need to demonstrate good behavior before I would agree to sign her up. At first, I gave it a few days and told her it wasn't enough time for me to see consistent change. She was afraid the trip would fill up, so I decided to sign her up to ease her worries, with the condition that I could withdraw her if any further issues arose. She agreed to this arrangement. The types of issues we've been dealing with include failing to complete her chores, which are minimal, keeping her room tidy daily, and taking out the trash weekly, secretly texting an ex-boyfriend who had treated her poorly in the past, trying to get her younger sister to lie and cover for her when caught, her younger sister telling me she was scared her older sister would punish her for telling the truth. After signing her up, I reminded her that she needed to follow our rules and meet our expectations. We're not overly strict parents, so I didn't think this was unreasonable. Then, during the school's Thanksgiving dinner, she crossed a line. We all attended as a family. As soon as she got her food, she tried to leave the table to hang out with a friend. Her dad, my ex, told her to stay at the table for a little while, but she didn't ask me or my husband for permission and left anyway. I assumed it would be a brief moment, but an hour passed, and she wasn't answering texts or calls. My husband and I spent 40 minutes searching for her before she finally answered a call from her dad. She had been outside the entire time, still with her friend. Update: due to the overwhelming feedback labeling me the idiot, I reinstated her trip. After reinstating it, we noticed an immediate improvement in her behavior. She started cleaning her room daily, which, as I mentioned in the comments, only involves tidying up and pulling up the blanket on her bed, and taking out the trash without arguments. However, over the past few days, her behavior has worsened again. She's no longer keeping her room clean, and gave me a lot of attitude when I asked her to take the trash out last night. Another update: after reinstating the trip, I've received more comments and messages labeling me an even bigger idiot and accusing me of being a bad parent. I understand that many commenters are reflecting on their own experiences with their parents or children, and it seems this topic has hit a nerve for many of you. For context, I was emotionally and physically abused growing up, but I've worked hard to let go of that baggage and not repeat those mistakes. My children and I have a good relationship, even if this situation might make it seem otherwise. We have open lines of communication and spend quality time together. They tell me a lot, though I'm not naive enough to think they share everything, and I strive to create a balance of rules and freedom. I appreciate those who pointed out that my daughter might not have realized leaving the table was such a big deal. That insight was one of the reasons I decided to reinstate her trip. Let's start judging. You're in the wrong-ish, but it depends. Look, all of your rules are reasonable, and I definitely don't think you're an idiot for enforcing consequences. But I'm not sure it's clear that your daughter was breaking a rule by leaving the table. I could be missing something, but I think this is the sequence of events. She wants to leave the table to chat with a friend outside. Her dad tells her to stay for a little while. She waits some amount of time, then leaves to chat with her friend. You assume that it will be a short chat. She chats for a while, and you get pissed because you can't find her. This feels like a case of miscommunication. If I was 13, there is a good chance that I wouldn't think that I was breaking any rules by doing this. My dad saying you can go in a little while would count as permission to leave in my head. Why would I ask again when the little while time is up? And why would I be expected to come back within a specific time frame? Look, if she understood what she was doing was wrong, then take her out of the trip. But I'd be careful with punishing her if she didn't realize she was being disrespectful. That can sour kids and make them feel that it's all futile anyways, especially if she was hitting all the other behavioral markers you asked of her. In this case, I'm going to have to say you're in the wrong. Do everything we say and behave are not clear, reasonable goals for a 13-year-old. My suggestion: make a list of things you'll need her to do to earn the trip and post it in a shared space. Make this a checklist for chores and other things she can do, not things she can't do, like don't text so-and-so. If she doesn't take out the trash, for example, you can point to the chart to remind her. This allows her to have clear goals to work towards that lets her see for herself in real time how she's doing and puts the responsibility entirely on her. Punishing her for talking to her ex is not helpful. She is at an age where she's especially vulnerable to romantic mistreatment, as she is just starting to test the waters with dating and relationships. She needs positive support to recognize healthy and unhealthy relationships so that she can make those decisions for herself. Punishment is not helpful for this and only makes her feel like she can't trust you enough to tell you if something happens down the line. E.g., if she keeps texting him and he gets her alone and hurts her, will she come to you for help? Or will she be too scared of losing huge things like grad trips as punishment for talking to him in the first place? No wonder she's pressuring her sister to lie for her. She's afraid of you and is more concerned with protecting herself from you than from him. Her younger sister who came clean told me I needed to protect her because she was scared how her older sister was going to punish her. Have you considered that the younger sister was made to fear the older sister's punishment the exact same way the older sister has been made to fear your punishment? She's modeling the behavior you've shown her in her interactions with the people she has perceived authority over. Finally, school trips are great social-emotional teaching opportunities where she can socialize with her peers in a school-adjacent setting where rules are enforced. This is a way to encourage pro-social behavior, and withholding it as a punishment for general rudeness may not be as beneficial for her development as taking the trip might be. A grad trip is a huge deal to a 13-year-old. I'm not seeing any misbehavior in this post that is concerning enough to justify this punishment.